Hi, I'm Davian Chong, OCP NIC subgroup lead and hardware engineer of Facebook. Today, I would like to present the topic, the journey to OCP NIC 3.0 Rev 1 and beyond, on behalf of our subgroup. Rev 1.0 marks a subgroup achieved a significant milestone. We would like to share with you what we did and more importantly, what we're going to do next so you can join us together. I will be joined by Thomas Ng, hardware engineer of Intel, whom is a significant contributor to our group's success. Let's start with by the numbers. Do you know what they are? We spent 2.5 years developing NIC 3.0 with over 80 drafts in circulation, with the CLA members for review and feedback. With that, we published 11 revisions into the public wiki for everyone's consumption. 30s and 10s. We have more than 30 general working sessions, 30 mechanical working sessions, more than 10 thermal and more than 10 signal integrity working sessions. Together with our 15 CLA members and our 108 followers, together we developed one spec. There are 14 contributing license agreement signed companies representing the workgroup as called out in our spec. They are Infinal, Broadcom, Dell, Facebook, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Intel, Keysight, Lenovo, Marvell, Mellanox, Metronome, Quanta, TE Connectivity, and University of New Hampshire IOL. DT Systems joined us in Q1 this year, which marked that 15 company. Next, I will pass it to Thomas to talk about what we did throughout the journey towards the Rev 1, and I will return shortly to talk about the community survey and the group's next step. Please welcome Thomas.
Thank you for attending the OCP Virtual Summit. My name is Thomas Ng. I'm a hardware engineer at Intel Corporation. I am the primary editor of the OCP NIC 3.0 spec. Today, we'll talk about the history and timeline of the spec, our solution features, and the publication process. Damien will follow up with the key focus areas and post 1.0 updates, as well as the call to action. The OCP NIC 3.0 specification is an evolution story. The journey started in 2012 with OCP MES 0.5. Facebook released a spec, and at the time, MES cards supported by 8 PCIe Gen 3 and Ethernet at 10 gig. In 2015, and with community contribution, the specification was expanded as MES 2.0. By 16 PCIe and support for up to 100 gig Ethernet was added. In 2017, we shook things up a little bit. Here are some highlights. A new specification workgroup and form factor evolved from the key learnings of OCP MES. The workgroup simplified the form factor down to 2 options, SFF, small form factor, and LFF, large form factor. The power envelope was also increased and allowed for power delivery of up to 80 watts for SFF and 150 watts for LFF. We improved the card serviceability. Cards can now be removed from the baseboard without opening up the chassis. The form factor also allows for up to 32 lanes of PCIe for higher bandwidth applications. The specification has well-defined manageability requirements, and today, multiple NIC and server vendors have adopted this specification and have real products in hand. You'll see this in the recorded demos. As previously mentioned, there are 2 card sizes. SFF cards are great for traditional NIC implementations. This supports up to 16 lanes of PCIe, and the I/O combination is shown on the screen. Large form factor cards support up to 32 lanes of PCIe and are targeted for smart NIC and higher power applications. Each OCP NIC 3.0 card comes with a standard faceplate and provides EMI containment. There is growth opportunity within this form factor. The OCP NIC 3.0 cards today is focused on Ethernet applications, but the modular form factor lends itself to other non-NIC use cases as well. PCIe Gen 4 is supported today with electrical compatibility for Gen 5 when it is available. The form factor provides higher delivered power and TDP support. This slide shows a side-by-side comparison of the faceplate offerings. The SFF has a pull tab plus thumb screw option, an ejector latch option, as well as the internal lock option. The internal lock prevents the card from being removed without releasing an internal detent on the inside of the chassis. The large form factor only has an ejector latch faceplate. An OCP NIC 3.0 card offers more optimized PCIe routing when compared to the traditional add-in cards and OCP MES 2.0 counterparts. The path between the ASIC and the card goldfingers is a straight shot, unlike previous implementations. Additionally, the OCP NIC 3.0 form factor offers support for single and multi-host configurations, as shown in the screen. The specification details out the PCI Express link configurations for single, dual, quad, and octal host implementations. The OCP NIC 3.0 specification details out the mechanical requirements and the electrical interfaces. We went through painstaking detail to define this. Manageability requirements are also well defined and are cross-referenced with industry standard specifications. We defined the SI requirements for PCIe and NCSI over RPT for this form factor. The regulatory requirements are detailed out, and we also provide thermal guidance in the spec. OCP NIC 3.0 lowers the barrier to entry by providing a wealth of design-in collateral as shown on the screen. Dell EMC and Intel have provided fixtures for PCIe compliance, thermal analysis, and shock and vibration testing. All of this material is freely available on the OCP NIC 3.0 wiki site. In the draft phase, there was frequent document updates. For 1.0 and beyond, we want to be a little bit more structured in the process. Here's our plan. We'll collect technical proposals from the OCP community, and we'll build consensus on the topic. A draft document with the working changes will be posted online with change bars enabled. The specification will then be opened up for a 2-week review cycle. We'll address the comments and iterate through this phase until all the issues have been resolved. Lastly, we'll publish the document on the wiki site and the OCP marketplace. The current plan is to do a community update on a 6 to 12 month cadence. With that, I'd like to turn this presentation over to Damien, where he'll talk about the future of OCP NIC 3.0, as well as the call to action.
Thanks, Thomas. We had a survey sent to the NIC and server community in January this year to understand the NIC ecosystem. This is our third survey, and we did it twice in the past years. Early and late adopters of the NIC 3.0 form factor have new NIC designs shipping in the next 6 months. However, this is pre-coronavirus becoming a pandemic. I hope it is minimal impact to our community shipment schedule. The NIC supplier and system integrators also tell us that the small form factor is more popular, while the large form factor is waiting for use case maturity. And a whopping 60 to 100% of our system integrator platform support NIC 3.0. A big thank you. This survey also has a short section, check our subgroup direction. The NIC community agreed with us that continuing investigation in the hot plug and also looking into new investigation areas such as taller small form factor and non-NIC use cases. Let's talk more about taller small form factor. The small form factor has 16 PCIe lanes. If we run in PCI Gen 4, a single QSFP in PAM4 would be 200G. It balances the bandwidth of the both sides well. The trigger for us to look into this is mainly due to we plan to extend this form factor to support PCI Gen 5, something which our SI work group already working on this for a few months. To balance the bandwidth, we need a single QSFP DD to get to 400G. But our form factor Z height does not work. Some may say, well, what if we run in dual QSFP port in PAM4 and we can get there? but we do think that there are adopters who prefer the simplicity of a single cable. One of the ideas is a dual stack in the rack unit, which basically means a minor increase of the Z height, just enough to cover the QSFP-DD. This allows two NICs to be stacked on top of each other. Another idea is doubling it just like what the PCIe CAM does, just doubling. This favors higher power use cases. All these are examples only, and we would like your feedback. What about non-NIC use cases? If you look into our spec, we did mention this form factor could be used for other applications. That said, the way our spec were written are still NIC-centric. When we examine our form factor against others, high bandwidth, high density, best for external cable application are our strengths. Hence, we were wondering what if we covered adjacent use cases. One thought is to extract the form factor definition and pin out into a higher level document, so others can use this new form factor document to develop new use cases such as accelerator, RAID card, retimer, external memory. These are examples only. We welcome the audience to join us in this investigation to see whether it makes sense for us to move forward with this idea. Regarding PCI Gen 5, we are working on optimizing the budget split between the baseboard and NIC. For PCI Gen 3 and Gen 4 NIC 3.0, we merely follow PCI CAM budget split guidance. The transition from PCI Gen 4 to Gen 5 in just a couple of years did not allow exotic PC material pricing to fall quickly enough. To fit within a predefined cost budget or form factor, system designers are forced to adopt shorter route length whenever possible, or utilize retimer which adds cost and complexity. We looked at our small form factor. It appears that our NIC site budget has the potential to be reduced as compared to PCIe CAM. After all, it is a smaller card. Hence, the investigation started. How do we make the cut? Follow CAM? More budget to the NIC? It is a negotiation process with data from the both sides. I'm confident that we can end up on a budget split that is fair to both sides. The numbers used in these examples, it's just an example. We need your input. We believe a good spec needs to come with a good way to determine whether a product complies with the spec. We will be documenting LED measurement methodology to promote uniformity across the platform. Especially, we do have recommended LED brightness in the spec. UNHLL and Dell has been spearheading our compliance program with electrical and thermal test fixtures, as well as test methodology. UNHLL will also be presenting our compliance program right after this session, so stay tuned. Join us and get involved is the best way you can help. If you have interest, please reach out and sign on to our mailing list. If you have a specific interest on mechanical, thermal, or signal integrity, I also can hook you up with our work group lead. Remember, your input shapes the future of the OCP NIC 3.0. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This is Thomas Singh. This is the live Q&A, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat window.
Hi, morning. This is Damien. Yep, same. Put your question in the chat window. here comes a question from Benjamin. And the question is, will there be a tall OCP form factor for both small form factor and large form factor? To answer Benjamin, so we have not looked into tall form factor yet, but the first thing we look at is factor, and if it makes sense to go taller, then the group would discuss and see whether it makes sense to port it into large form factor or not. The reason is because from our survey to the community, the large form factor adoption is still pretty low, and large form factor doesn't have the same limitation at this time because you have space to put more ports. But again, we have not discussed, and this is can be discussed when we go into the taller form factor investigation. Thomas, you have anything?
I think you got it covered. Hey, Thomas and Damien, I think we can add to that question that we're really looking for community input on that kind of idea so that more people talk about maybe the importance of a double height, large form factor. We're absolutely open to listen to that and hear that. And I think other vendors and community vendors are really interested to hear people's ideas. But like you say, we're not seeing a significant large form factor interest just yet.
There's another question in the Q&A from Frank. So again, talking about the taller small form factor. So his question is it for QSFO double deck connector? I'm not familiar with QSFO. You know, and Paul,
Maybe the question was for QSFP and with heat sinks, or like a
QSFP
maybe DD.
Yeah. I guess it's probably a typo. Yeah. So yeah, I think the initial look into is QSFP DD, Frank, as listed in the slide. That was one of the motivator looking at the taller form factor. But again, once the form factor has been defined, it can be anything that fit within that form factor, in my opinion. And obviously, Broadcom will partner with the team, and Broadcom is one of the strong contributor into this kind of discussion.
Maybe another way to answer the question is what the primary reason for the tall, to reemphasize the primary reason for the tall connector is I think is driven by thermal requirements. I think some of our customers and vendors are looking for cards that they can more easily cool, and that height really adds a significant cooling capacity to the card for maybe some innovative applications that might require a little more cooling capacity, both in terms of card placement and in terms of power output.
Actually, there are questions in the chat that Robert is asking when does for the front panel handles ejector for the NIC form factor. Can we provide a list? Is this something that Paul and Thomas, you can help?
I think we need to think about that more. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. I don't immediately have. I don't have immediate objections or strong favoritism for this. I think we need to talk about it and think about that more. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So we may have.
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Damien.
Yeah. So the only thing that we have from a public sharing at this time is a Lux share front panel. They come and share that. If there's something that we can get you in touch with, Robert. But others is, I think, is a harder thing, but certainly can be discussed. Thomas, what about you?
Yeah, so my input on this was this may just depend on your company's preferred commodities instead of going with just a predefined list of vendors to make faceplates. Hopefully that answers your question, Robert. I see a question from Ben. Any thoughts on going the other direction and having something smaller than the small form factor? I don't think so. The OCP NIC3 definition, small form factor was the smallest one that we talked about. And that was a agreement between baseboard and NIC vendors to figure out the available area that they could allocate on a server, as well as the minimum area that we needed from a networking company perspective to have silicon and supporting devices on there.
It looks like it's time to kind of call the end of the presenting time. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. So thank you for joining us in this and good questions.